One of the phrases we use internally is the solution to this problem like a vitamin or a painkiller? It's something that's like urgent and customers have to have it right now? Or is it just a nice to have? And we will still do some nice to have features. But when you think about building a business or a new product that's going to be a new revenue stream for your business, you really want to get into that painkiller territory.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Boredom Club today. My name is Yossi Garmazi, and I'm joined also by a good friend of mine, Jason Wolf. Jason.
Happy to be here, Yossi. I'm excited.
So today we are fortunate enough to interview none other than Jeremy Epling, CPO of Vanta, a company that revolutionizing the way businesses streamline and automate their security and compliance processes and making it just faster and effective than ever before. So Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Absolutely. The pleasure is ours. We are excited as well. So, Jeremy, is something interesting about your career before Vanta is that you actually worked at GitHub. And GitHub is very famous for developer first empathy. So, I wanted to ask, how do you bring this same craft level obsession to a field like compliance and GRC, which is to say more bureaucratic?
I mean, I think in the security GRC space, I would say a lot of kind of craft and polish usually doesn't go into the design of the experiences, but I actually think that's a missing opportunity. And it's an area where we've really differentiated. Like when I think about the story of Vanta for where we started, it was helping startup founders kind of get SOC 2 and ISO for the first time so they could land that first big enterprise deal. And when you think about someone who doesn't know security compliance, you really need to have a really easy, simple experience to onboard them to all these new concepts. And you need to automate a lot. And that is really what has accelerated not just our growth for startup founders, but all the way to big enterprise customers like we have, whether it be like Snowflake or Atlassian or Row. And because they want that same type of experience of automation. One of the things I kind of think about for bringing that craft into it is, we spend a lot of time looking at prototypes. We're very prototype heavy versus like writing a lot of docs. I really think about like the delight of the customer experience. So we try to map out what does it look like a day in the life of a GRC professional? What is everything that they need to go do to accomplish that? And how can we actually just make it a delightful, fast experience for all those things? I mean, to some degree, the less time they're spending in Vanta, the better, because it means we're automating and doing more work for them. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think in a lot of cases, I'm looking for like, how quickly can they get through those daily tasks? How are we helping them focus on like high impact security decisions and not kind of security theater or a ton of like paperwork and other stuff, which we can just automate away from them?
It totally makes sense. And you mentioned also Snowflake. So we're going to host the CMO, I think, next month. So we're going to ask her what she thinks about Venta, right? And also considering all the data and unstructured data that's now going on with AI. So it seems that company like Venta is more relevant than ever with all this amount of, let's say, data that you didn't even comprehend before. But if you need to describe how Venta differentiates itself from other competitors there in the market, what would you say?
I think there's four main areas that Vanta is really different than everything else in the market. One of them is our automation and integration depth and breadth. We have more integrations than anyone else at over 400. We over have 1,300 tests that are automatically looking at your security controls that you have, making sure that they're up to date, and automatically generating all the evidence that you need for a successful audit. So there's none of this like running all around, asking 1,000 people to go and like take screenshots and upload PDFs because we're automatically doing that for you. And all that automation integration depth has become even just more important in the age of AI because that gives us even more data. And because we have over 14,000 customers, more than anyone else in this space, it really allows us to tune and optimize our AI so that it can be doing more work on your behalf, whether that be handling vendor security reviews, questionnaires that you get from customers, helping you with risk assessments, helping you write policies for the first time or adopt to a new framework. There's a wide set of areas that it helps with, which really goes into that second area. So there's automation, integration depth. The other one is around this unified view of risk. I think if you talk to any security professional, they'll always be talking about risk. We have a great internal risk product that's built in and then focus a lot on external risk as well. So we have continuous monitoring of your third-party vendors, pulling that in, automating, getting the evidence from them, helping them answer the questionnaires, automatically doing assessments based on how you use the vendor. So we can tell you, hey, things that you care about with this vendor, there might be a security risk here or there. So you're not reading through hundreds of pages of documents. We are really designed for enterprise scale. Some of the things that we do that no one else does is we have a new feature coming out called organization centers. We have an existing feature called business units. What this helps is if you're a large enterprise customer, maybe you're doing acquisitions, you have multiple different product lines in different regions, you're going to think about compliance in a different way for each of those, for those different products, for those different regions, maybe for different subsidiaries. You can model that all in Vanta, leverage our issue management, our audit workflows that are customizable and automatic so you can collaborate with your auditor directly in Vanta on that evidence. And then I think the other one is we just continue to be the leader in this space. We created this space in 2018. We are still number one. We have more customers than anyone else, and we continue just to ship a ton of features. We are very excited about always keeping our customers on the cutting edge of what's possible. We're releasing over 25 new features every single month. I think last 12 months, we've done over 300 new features that we've launched, just trying to make it easier and simpler for customers to earn improved trust through GRC, compliance, and security.
That's incredible. The amount of feature that you were been able to ship every month, really groundbreaking. And I can tell you that we actually hosted several cyber companies, and they all said it's all about the SOC teams and SOC confirmation. So I guess it makes sense that you have so much traction with the business. And speaking about Vanta specifically and about the product, I guess you scale so fast, but at the same time, you need also to be innovative, and you need the product teams to be able to deliver faster than ever before. And interesting thing is that you famously advocated, and still do, for banning decision by committees in order to move much faster. But how do you empower, say, a PM at Vanta to make high-stakes call without the safety net of, okay, let's get consensus?
One of the key things that we really focus on is that fast decision making. And so, there are times when you can't make the decision on your own. You need to talk to others, and we encourage people to kind of collaborate and get that done. We're just always trying to reduce that time. So my question is first would be like, okay, what decision do you have to make? This one, do you have a strong opinion? Do you need more data? Okay, I need more. Great. Who are you going to talk to? How fast can we talk to them so that we can get that decision made and move forward? I think another big part of really having a fast decision-making culture is really understanding what you're going to ship in that customer experience. So we have a high emphasis on showing designs, the customer experience, what that marketing, material will look like, what that prototype is. So every PM on the team and every designer can use Figma Make or Vercel's V0 to automatically pull up prototypes. We quickly show those to customers, and we're always trying to keep in a tight loop with customers. So I think that's some of the ways that we move decision-making faster. Another thing is we just have fewer PMs. I like having like a leaner, more senior PM team so that they can go through and just make fast decisions. I think PM has a really big impact. So having fewer people I need to coordinate with or the team does in general, and then having kind of more designers than PM. And then obviously there's a lot more engineers than there are PMs and designers. So a few different ways we try to streamline that decision-making process and not get stuck in this analysis paralysis. I feel like, especially in the world of AI, everything is moving so quickly. My encouragement to a lot of people is to get more comfortable with like gut-based decisions. Like we can get data, but like you can kind of get stuck in this analysis paralysis of always wanting more data, talking to more customers. And when do we feel it's good enough to kind of make a decision and start shipping something to a customer and showing them, even if it's a prototype, even if it's something just in their environment, to get like a real signal and then start building and moving forward.
Speaking about building, I guess now with vibe coding tools, you could do it much faster than ever before. I mean, obviously, all of the people that work at Vanta, they have the required, let's say, technical abilities. But even guys like me or Jason could do suddenly, I don't know, an app out of nowhere. And you reportedly gave your entire product organization the V0 licenses. And this one is actually interesting because you told them, if I can show it, I can test it, right? So what is a specific feature in Vanta today that started, say, as a 10 minutes AI prototype rather than a 20-page spec document?
I think we gave them these licenses like a year ago. So I would say a lot of new features. One of the ones, a lot of the things we're doing around access management, maybe the new commitments feature is another interesting one. So we have a new feature that came out. If you think about, hey, you want to go sign that big deal with an enterprise customer, they're going to ask you a bunch of security questions, but you can go through Vanta's questionnaire automation. We help you all that with a trust center and everything. It's great. But then after you sign that contract, usually there's a lot of specific terms if it's a big company, like you're going with the big bank. They're going to be like, hey, whenever you change a subprocessor, we need to find out of that ahead of time. Like certain types of critical vulnerabilities, we want an update whenever you're remediating them and how fast. So what our commitments product does is it automatically analyzes those contracts that you are about to sign or have already signed, pull those commitments into Vanta, and help the security team build controls around them. So you understand what commitments you're making to these customers, the impact of them. The security team can then budget and plan for any new work that they need to go do. So that was a good example, a feature where one of the PMs on our team, Michaela, kind of like started from the beginning with kind of like V0, just mapping out what is that customer experience like. And there's definitely times where we can translate those more directly into code, but if nothing else, just getting that prototype and showing it to customers. A lot of the new privacy features that we've launched have started this way as well, where a PM gets in, they work with the designer, they quickly get together a basic flow. And again, it's not the most perfect looking design. It's not the most polished thing, but it helps get across the concept. I like this phrase, like seeing is believing. And it's kind of something I talk to my team a lot about, where I was like, I can read a doc, but 5 people can read this doc and all come away with slightly different visions of what they think it is. When you show a customer and let them click through something, it just makes it so much more real. And then you get that feedback. And all the features we ship, they're never perfect on that first, initial prototype. So we get that, we show a couple customers, we get feedback. We then jump back into like V0 or Figma Make or something like that. You can go through, you can make your edits, make the adjustments, then show another set of customers tomorrow. And having that tight loop where PM and design can do it without always going back to engineering and have to start a huge engineering plan has just really unlocked the speed that we can move at and how fast we can react to customer feedback. And then even after we ship a feature, we've also been able to leverage like Codex. We were one of the first kind of alpha customers on Codex from OpenAI. We also leverage Claude Code and Cursor and many other tools. We actually have our PMs and designers contributing fixes and design improvements to the product directly through those. Even non-technical PMs, like I come from a technical background and study computer science and still like write a bunch of code. I guess it's like an artisanal thing now, artisanal handcrafted code that I'll write every now and then. But when I think about some of our PMs, like the PM that we had here on this commitments feature, for her, she was a less technical PM, and we've had other less technical PMs. And we recorded some Loom videos internally, shared them around, and said, hey, this is a lot easier than you probably think it is. And kind of got the team going, got them excited, kind of let people pair up. And now the whole team is just unblocked on being able to like very quickly move on discovery conversations, prototyping, and even contributing fixes like directly to production and having them ship all the way through, passing tests and, code review and everything like that.
I love it. And it's all about the customer experience indeed. And I wanted to ask you also about the dynamics of PM and designers, because you described a world where designer push and engineers to make much more design calls, right? But in this fluid environment, what is the core job essentially of a PM? Do you see it meaningfully changing, let's say, over the next 5 years or so?
I think for me, when I look at PMs, a lot of what they're trying to figure out is, what is the core problem we need to go solve for a customer and how impactful is that? One of the phrases we use internally is like, is this the solution to this problem like a vitamin or a painkiller? That's something that's like urgent and customers have to have it right now? Or is it just a nice to have? And we will still do some nice to have features. But when you think about building a business or a new product that's going to be a new revenue stream for your business, you really want to get into that painkiller territory. And so I think this allows PMs to prototype really quickly, to work with design, to go ahead and get those ideas out there. I also think they're going to become more and more accountable for the business side of things as well. So I think about pricing and packaging. How is PM partnering with marketing and sales on that? How are we think about the messaging pieces that they can go drive on that as well? I think for me, design, the future I see of design is actually owning more of the front end. Like I would love to have a world where engineers don't have to work on the front end at all. Like we're probably a little bit further away from that, but I can see a world. Some companies are doing this with design engineers. We're doing more of that. We're also empowering our designers to contribute directly into the code base a lot more clearly than they ever have before with AI tools. So I see design really owning that front end experience, and PMs trying to figure out, who are we building for? Are we building the right things? Do they absolutely love the product? and what's the business model? How are we continuing to grow the business and talk about that and drive that forward? And probably less time than they've spent, at least when I think about my early career. PM and design were kind of the same, but like really early on, where I would like design on my own mocks and kind of do all that, where you can let a expert designer really focus on a great front end experience, and then you can focus more on the scenario and the business.
And something that you mentioned that really resonated with me is that you choose the feature that, I mean, there are tons of features I guess you could do at Vanta, but you choose the one that you can actually scale them and scale the business. So it's something that the CPO of Wiz told us as well. So great minds think alike, I guess. And I want to shift the gears a little bit now more into the Vanta specific products, because you've described Vanta AI Agent 2.0 as a 24/7 GRC engineer. So if the AI can eventually map all controls and answer all questionnaires, does the role of a compliance officer evolve into something more of like a risk architect? Or
It's definitely changing and rapidly changing, where I would say they're spending almost more time in the future, like orchestrating and thinking about like the high level risks, what they should be focused on, the security impact, and kind of doing that more detailed assessment and overall orchestration of the agents. And so I think a lot of compliance activity in the past has been kind of generating a lot of the evidence and the proof that you are doing the right things. And I think automation and tools are just handling all of that. They're now starting, like with the Vanta agent, also handling remediation. It will keep your policies up to date. It'll automatically deprovision users for you. It'll generate code to remediate specific issues that you have, like security issues in the product or your environment. And so I think when I look at the future of compliance, I think all that kind of cat herding work of like making sure everybody in the company is approving their policies and doing that is going to get handled. Generating the evidence of just showing what you're already doing is going to be less impactful. And it's going to be choosing what are the most high impact risks that the business should be focused on. And when we think about new technologies, how do we adopt them in a good way that's high trust? So when AI comes out, should we look at an ISO 42001, as like a standard for AI that you can go and pursue? And Vanta offers a product there that fully automates it. Like, do you want to go to there? What are the questions you're getting from your customers about AI? How should that influence the product team? And how should that influence your data security internally? How should that influence like the access rights that you give different people? So I do think they're going to be more focused on kind of internal risks and internal security, and a lot of the kind of paperwork aspects will all just be handled automatically.
definitely some food for thought, as they say. And indeed, something truly interesting, your recent State of Trust report of Vanta, that is something that actually was mind-blowing, is that while 80% of leaders are increasing AI adoption, makes sense, right? But nearly 60% of them say that AI threats outpace their expertise. Were you surprised by this number, and did it affect in a meaningful way the Venta roadmap?
We had kind of been anticipating a lot of this. I think with a lot of new technology, you end up seeing kind of the bad guys end up leveraging it just as much as the good guys. And I think what we've seen, Anthropic had an interesting post in, I think, early December about a nation state attack where Claude code was used.
80% of it, I think, was used to do the AI attack. So crazy.
Exactly. So there's the positive aspect of AI is helping all these people write code they never could before, but there's also attackers that are using that same advantage to kind of be persistently, constantly attacking. And so I think the way that we've looked at it is it just means there's even more of a need for AI and automation for security teams to better protect and defend all the resources that they have within the company. So when I look at Vanta, not only do you have this real-time automation that's going through and telling you where you could have vulnerabilities or gaps in your security program, but the Vanta AI agent is going in and automatically remediating those for you. And so we take an approach of kind of review and approve. So we'll go ahead and say, hey, here's a code change, or here's a thing. A human can come in just to make sure everything is good, and they can build trust with the system and say like, yes, I want to automatically remediate this and move forward. Over time, I see more and more customers just automatically accepting those. And eventually we may have probably a YOLO button, if you will, where they can go through and say, just automatically remediate these different pieces for me because I built so much trust in this area of it. But I think that's what we need, because there's going to be these persistent attacks that are adaptive and constantly coming. The advantage that I think you have as a company, though, that's leveraging something like Vanta and the Vanta AI agent is we know all your internal systems. The attackers are only poking in from the outside and they're trying to guess from these outside signals what it is. We know everything. Like we know your risks, your assets, their security configuration, everything. So we can dynamically adapt to threats that are coming up, tell you what we're seeing externally because Vanta does have that continuous monitoring, threat monitoring feed. And so we have that threat intelligence coming in. So we know what attacks are happening at different companies and different vendors and what's going on. And we can help you stay one step ahead of suggesting new controls, suggesting new security practices, and automatically remediating. So I think those are all the interesting things. I think there is more that you can do to defend. So I don't think people should be scared. But I think when they think about their security, defense, and compliance in these pieces, you really need to be integrating a product that's focused on automation and AI and that can really drive that for these large scale programs to have the proper set of defenses.
Another fascinating stat actually from this report was that 64% of leaders believe that security framework are essentially theater, which was surprising to me. Sort of like only dashboard to tell you, okay, this is wrong, this is here you have risk, here you don't have risk. But do you think this trend could shift, or this theater is a sort of like a necessary evil to satisfy all of the boards?
I mean, I think there is some amount of necessary evil, if you will, with this. Like when companies are buying a product, they are always going to ask a set of questions and you need answers to those because they're going to want to know if they're adopting you as a vendor, how, you're using their data. What are you doing? What are your security practices? I think governments and regulators and your partners are going to ask the same questions. And that's why the mission of Vanta is really around building and earning trust between these different organizations. That said, I think there's a ton of theater that Vanta has already eliminated and continues to go eliminate. And so I think there was all this time spent, if you think about a vendor security review of the past, where you would just get reams and reams of documents, hundreds of pages, tons of questions, sometimes 400 or 500 security questions. People had to go spend days upon days upon days reading through this, answering and all doing that, where a solution like Vanta AI can automatically look through the knowledge base that you've given it and automatically answer all of these questions for you. They can automatically ask you questions like, hey, how are you going to use this vendor? Because the way company A or B uses a vendor could be very different. Maybe someone's storing healthcare data in it and someone else is just using it to like manage meetings for scheduling or something like that, right? And so that risk profile and that Vanta can say, oh, how are you using this vendor? Let me dig through all this documentation that they've given. Let me automatically request it and pull it in and tell you what could impact your business specifically. So I think all of that kind of paperwork and back and forth part of the theater is the thing we're trying to eliminate. And I think the other thing we see from customers is because Vanta has a real-time control status, you can share that on your trust center. For anybody that doesn't know, a trust center is kind of like the security profile of your company and your products, and you can share that out. And I think what companies want is they just want to exchange high quality security information in an automated way between each other. And so that's an area where Vanta really shines. If there's Vanta on both sides, we can do that very easily. Even if Vanta is only on one side, if you're the buyer or the seller, we can easily, quickly exchange the security information, go through the documents, automatically do threat assessments and everything like that that's built right into the product, which just saves a ton of time, which I think is what some of this theater is around. Just like, oh my gosh, there's so much like paper pushing that I have to go do here that doesn't feel like it's valuable and it takes a lot of hours. And that's where we really focus, just eliminating all of those.
I agree, and something that Vanta been able to truly differentiate itself from the competitor, and that's gonna be my last question before I pass to Jason, is that you launched pretty recently the Agentic Trust platform, right, to unify all the compliance, risk, and security assessment in one place. But how this platform change what customers can do with Vanta versus, say, the traditional checklist style compliance approach that was very prevalent until recently?
Automation and AI has been the big transformation. Like one of the things I think is interesting about Vanta is just in GRC and trust in general is it's extremely broad. Like you have very dedicated security vendors that go deep into an area. Like Wiz is amazing for enterprise customers at cloud security, and they go super deep into your cloud infrastructure and all the different pieces there. But there's a lot of areas that it doesn't look at that really let you see your entire security posture. And I think that's where a tool like Vanta really comes in because one, we can look at all of your cloud infrastructure and security, and we do integrate with tools like Wiz and can pull information from there. but we're also mapping that back to the frameworks and controls. We're looking at your vendor assessments. We're looking at your personnel. Are you doing background checks? Are you not? We're integrating with MDM providers. We're looking at all the assets that you have across the company, the internal risk in addition to the external risk. We're helping you manage third-party audits. So I think that breadth of data that a tool like Vanta has is what's really unique. And I think that's why more and more Vanta kind of becomes this command center for security teams. When they think about how do I communicate to the board the overall state of how we're doing on security, Vanta has that breadth and the depth to be able to go ahead and talk about the ROI impact that you're having, how you are improving security and mitigating risks across your entire business and across individual products, how that's getting better and faster. Are your deal cycles getting faster for selling your product because security teams reviewing questionnaires faster? Is procurement getting better because third-party risk management there? Are you driving down the risk in your business because we're automatically giving tools and PRs that are automatically pre-built to go ahead and mitigate security issues to the engineering team? So they're improving the security of the product automatically. So I think these are all the different pieces that really, when I think about the Agentic Trust platform, it's that amazing breadth, all that automation that empowers that intelligence that lets us go through and automate more and more of the process for security teams.
I'm excited to see what next for you guys. It seems all the SPM space, specifically with all the dashboards out, it seems fascinating to see. I don't know, specifically now with the AI and all this structured, unstructured data, a lot of compliance you need there, right? So, Jeremy, thank you so much. And Jason, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Yossi and Jeremy. Been great listening to you thus far. I'd love to shift the conversation just a little bit toward your product strategy and the team leadership. For starters, I'm sure there might be some product managers in the audience, and they would love to know what traits you look for, and also designers for that matter. When it comes to building compliance-focused products, what do you look for?
I mean, I think for me, I always think having a good understanding of what is the customer doing and what is their daily life is kind of the foundation of great product management work and design work as well. So when new PMs come into Vanta, one of the things I really want them to focus on is understanding who are our customers. We have a set of personas that they then go through and understanding what they do. Like a down market customer that's starting their first time compliance journey as a founder who just came out of Y Combinator is going to look very, very different than, a GRC professional at like a major bank. And so how do you think about those different customers? What is their daily life? What are their problems? How do they move through there? I think one of the other big things to me is being able to, like, we have two principles that I think all of them are important at Vanta, but I would say there's two that always come up that I look a lot for. One of them is bias for action. And the other one that we call like lead with resiliency. And so I think biasing for action is just so important for PMs. Like you need to be able to gather data, but you can't let yourself fall into analysis paralysis and understanding like, great, what do I need to go make this next decision? What is going on? How do I keep moving things forward? How am I creating the right healthy pressure around dates for engineering or design or which other areas so that we're moving forward? How am I staying on top of what happens in the industry? I think this gets with this lead with resiliency. If you're at a startup like Vanta where it's hyper growth and we're scaling super fast and, we're doubling the size of the team like every year, everyone is kind of always new. And so people who can ramp up really quickly and to start to have an impact and can like deal well with some of the chaos that happens. I wouldn't say Vanta is chaotic as in we don't know what we're doing, but there's a lot of new things that are going. There are a lot of ideas. Something new gets launched in the AI space, and then we're like, great, can we take advantage of this? Can we not? Can we go figure that out like ASAP? So I think someone who's adaptable. I think I bias a little bit, and we have lots of very successful non-technical PMs at Vanta, but I do think having a deeper technical background is an asset. I think it will help you with some of the AI coding tools, prototyping, everything else, because there always is some last mile work. I would say it also just helps you have a strong relationship with the engineering team because you understand how it's built. You can also get a bit of a like bullshit detector of like if engineers are sandbagging numbers or whatever else. And you're like, is this really important or not? You also have empathy when they're legitimately telling you like the architecture is messed up and we need to go spend some time fixing it. And then you can pull them to be like, great, well, what are we going to get out of this? Is it going to get faster? Is there going to be fewer incidents? Once we go through and make these changes, are we going to be able to ship, features faster because the builds are quicker and the daily life of developers is better? So I think a lot of that technical background is also really helpful. I think the other one I'd bring is just like get very familiar with like fast prototyping tools so that you can be very proficient in going in and quickly building apps, building mock scenarios, showing those to customers, and really trying to cut through to like, will a customer buy this thing or not? And how much happier will it make them? I think, a lot of PMs, especially if you're more on the like driving new products tied to revenue side and less kind of like on the platform side. But like when you're testing out these new ideas, there's 1,000 things customers would love, but which ones are they going to get motivated to go buy and pay for? And which ones are going to have real durable differentiation in the future? So like when we look back at the company 2 years from now, we're like, if we wouldn't have made this investment, we wouldn't be in the place we are now. So thinking about that differentiation, that's not something that just lasts for a month or two and a competitor sees it and they copy the feature, but something that's really durable that we can build over time too. I think understanding what those are and constantly asking yourself that question is really important to picking that right set of features, which I think is at the heart of what product managers focus on.
I think that level of discernment is crucial, especially as you consider like how fast you've grown in the competitive environment, to make sure that your competitors aren't able to catch up to you as fast, that you're also on the cutting edge of what customers want. So that's awesome to hear that you encourage future PMs and designers to be like that. I'd love to hear what some of those biggest challenges were, besides maybe deciding on, which products or which pain points to focus on. What were maybe some of the other bigger challenges as you scaled your product org? For instance, like keeping the team aligned and customer focused. Are there any other things you'd cite?
Whenever you're growing a team this fast, there's always a lot that comes in. I think making sure you're hiring the right people is really important. So really looking through the hiring pipeline. I don't believe you can have like 100% success rate on hires. So I think, what is that right pipeline? Who are we looking for? How could it be different for individual roles? I think for more senior people, and because we have a smaller PM team, I'm more open to having more like specialized roles. Like it's not just a generic template of a PM looks like this and they're successful at Vanta. It's like, no, for this role, we need a person shaped like this because it's going to help us unlock in this new way. It's going to balance out the team. So I think doing that well, I think having a good way to kind of quickly manage people out as well, as like painful as that can be. I think we have a lot of freedom in Vanta that is helpful to determine, hey, if someone isn't a fit, we can go work with them to take a next step that's respectful of them and help them find the next job and what it is. But I think that's because the hiring rate won't be 100%, especially when you're hiring like this fast at that many people. Understanding how you have a great program to ramp people up. And then if you're finding out they're not ramping, how to engage with them. And then if it turns out it's not a right fit, really help them like move on and in a helpful way for them and for you. I think there's something where you just have to start repeating yourself all the time. It's something I'm still not quite used to, but I feel like for things to really sink in for culture change, I feel like I've said something 10,000 times and I probably need to say it 10,000 more times for it to like truly sink in throughout the whole organization, because so many people are new. Like I know recently we had at one point, I think if you had been at Vanta more than 3 months, you had more tenure than like 25% of the company or something like that. And when like that many people are new, things that you think, oh, everyone remembers this because we said it a month ago. It's like, oh no, like there's so many new people in the last 2 or 3 months. Like they've never heard this before. So just going back to like who we are, what is our culture, what is the most important priorities. I think I'm pretty good at keeping a lot of things in my head. And the thing I have to focus on a lot is like simplifying the messages down to like, what are the top level things that we need to keep focused on. And I think that's really helped me continue to like scale the org. It's something I always have to remind myself of like, okay, what are the 3 or 4 most important things? Let's always go back to those and really be pushing on what they are. So the whole organization is kind of like moving forward. I think not having a lot of what can feel like taxes on the team. There's a lot of cross-team things you need to go do. One of the values of Vanta is that it's an integrated platform. So our customers want the entire product to work really well together. So that means that when you ship a new feature, you want it to appear in lots of different places and for it to be consistent across there. But I think if you overload teams too much, where it feels like they're always doing cross-team work, like you just kind of don't actually are able to differentiate and win in your individual categories and individual products there. So I think having a healthy balance of that is really important as well.
100%. And I'm wondering, there's so much to stay on top of in terms of performance. And you do have to repeat these key messages over and over to keep the team prioritizing what's important. So I guess what's one metric that you maybe care about the most? What's something you constantly monitor?
I feel like for me, a lot of it comes down to like customer success. Like I'm not a huge fan of NPS. That's probably like a separate topic of like what's good and bad about NPS. But I try to look at the core flows of our product and be like, what is the customer satisfaction that we're seeing through those core flows? How quickly are people getting to that magic moment? So think about engagement and activation for individual products or the product kind of suite as a whole. Those are the big things I focus on. And then obviously, like, is that translating into revenue? Because like you can build a great product that could not be a great business. At Vanta, we are building both and want to keep building both. And so understanding that, hey, we have these investments. Sometimes they take a while to like mature from the product experience, but are they turning into revenue? And then if they're not, is it something wrong in the product side? Is it how we're positioning it on the marketing side? Is it something with sales? How do we go through and do that? And so I think that deep collaboration, you mentioned before where PMs could spend more time. I think PMs, especially ones that are leading new product areas, the deeper that they can get in with marketing to making sure we're going to market on the messaging and having some deep sellers that are kind of more product aligned sellers that can do discovery with them and they're in it together. That is how all of our new successful products have launched. It is effectively, from very early on, product has an idea, they're building something, we're working with customers, and we're pulling in product minded salespeople very early that are helping with that discovery, learning. Is this like a vitamin? Is this a painkiller? What is really resonating with them? They're collaborating on pricing and packaging from day one and really building that entire, what is the full customer value there? And I think you have to understand that full piece to really kind of unlock it. And then we have this notion of like a product pipeline with different stages, with different revenue goals and kind of based on what they've hit and the customer satisfaction, when we can put more sellers onto it and how we think about building more motions and other pieces as it progresses through. And so I think being able to track the products against that is really helpful because like not every new product idea is going to work out. Some of them you think could be a big revenue stream and just turns into a feature, but it could be, hopefully it's a good differentiating feature. Other ones, turn out great. And some of them you just need to be able to kind of like shut down and kill or just turn into like, hey, we just give this away for free. It was cool. We did this, but we need to be spending this effort on something else that's going to grow, the business in that way and grow it because customers love it and see a ton of value from it.
And I'm sure they're mighty grateful that they have you overseeing that process and seeing these products grow and scale. So kudos to you. I'm going to shift gears to a lightning round. So thinking about, you've witnessed one of the great entrepreneurs of our day, scale an amazing organization at Vanta. So what's the single most valuable piece of advice you'd give to entrepreneurs today, having witnessed her?
I think Christina's amazing. And I'd say one of the things I've learned from her is that she is really good at just building a thoughtful, welcoming environment for us to brainstorm different ideas and bring like a diverse set of thoughts together. I think one of the unique things is that she, when I think about our CT meetings of how we pull together between revenue, finance, product, we can all have disagreements of what we're doing. I think she does a really good job bringing that all together, creating an environment where we can disagree and share different pieces, but then kind of come through and like make a decision. So I would say, hey, if you're starting a new company, obviously there's a ton around product market fit, you know what I mean? Finding that, building a product that people love. I would say also just think about how you're creating an environment where people feel like they can go through and like take experiments and take big risks. Because when you're trying to find that early product market fit, there's a lot of risky things that you need to go do to see, is this going to work? Is this not? Listening to everyone's ideas and creating that environment where you can bring lots of different ideas and then make a decision is really important skill, I think, for these founders to have.
Totally agreed. What's the biggest impact that a mentor has had on you? Who is that mentor and why was it so impactful?
I would say one of the big ones, I worked for a guy, Piero Sierra. He's the head of AI right now at Skyscanner. And this is like years and years ago, but I think he really taught me the importance of design and how design and a well-crafted customer experience can be a really big differentiator for your product. And I think that's proved true at a ton of different businesses. If you think about Linear or Figma or Notion or Stripe, GitHub, Vanta as well. I think we've been in an industry where in security, obviously, like design obviously isn't as high of a priority, but I think when you have high quality designs that people love, you just see the product take off in these really great ways and people just getting excited, want to use it and wanting to go buy your product over other products because they see that value in there. So I think he really taught me the value of that when I was at Microsoft, and it's something I've held on to since.
Yeah, absolutely. Great UI, UX is just makes for a delightful experience, right? If you could have coffee with anyone, alive or historical, who would it be?
Oh, I think for me, I would go with probably Steve Jobs. As much as this is probably an answer a lot of people would give, I feel like I'm giving the like basic answer, but I find so many of the decisions that like he made at Apple so interesting and would love to like just pick his brain on them.
Makes sense. How about favorite movie and why?
Oh man, I would say if I just want like a good silly laugh, which is like what I need a lot of times for my favorite go-to movies, it would be The Big Lebowski. I don't know why, but I've just like always found that movie absolutely hilarious, and it is like my go-to. If I'm ever in a bad mood, just like turn that on and I'll start laughing and love it.
How many times have you watched it?
Oh man, I mean probably like 30, maybe more. Just every now and then, just put it on the background to see some like hilarious scenes. So yeah,
You don't mess with the
Amazing.
Jesus.
yeah, exactly.
Oh man. All right. The grand finale on Lightning Round. If you weren't in your current role and you were doing a totally alternate profession, just imagine like,
Yeah.
you somehow things turned out way differently. What do you think that thing would be you'd be doing?
I would say probably a comic book artist author, maybe. I still read a ton of like comics and graphic novels today, mainly more like indie stuff from like Image and everything than more the superhero ones. But I always loved that as a kid. I drew a ton. I still draw now with my kids. Actually, my first quote business in middle school was actually drawing and authoring comics with a friend of mine and like selling them to other people in our middle school. So probably going back to that. Uh,
Nice, nice. That's inspiring. We were supposed to interview you about that enterprise. I'm just,
yeah.
All right. Well, over to Yossi. Thanks so much, Jeremy.
So, Jeremy, it's been really a pleasure. It's super interesting. So, thank you so much for joining us. And for everybody else in the audience, so stay tuned. We have other amazing episodes. We just hosted the CEO of Zapier, Wade Foster, CMO of Snowflake. So, stay tuned. And Jeremy, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.